The patrons have spoken, and for the first patron pick ever, we have Tyranitar. I guess for all of you who want more Gen 2 Pokemon, the patrons are looking out for you. Maybe you could do the same perhaps? Shameless plug. Either way, we've got the second pseudo-legendary ever and the final evolution of Larvitar. Larvitar's Pokedex entry says that it has to eat a mountain's worth of soil just to evolve into Pupitar. So I guess we know what's really in the rare candy now. Just dirt. Honestly, it really is appropriate that we have him for the first patron pick, because it's all of my patrons being tyrants over me. I've low-key dreaded this day because I know this is going to be a long one, but I do what the people ask of me. As for the regular comments, don't worry guys, we've got that covered too for next week. Alright, let's get moving because we've got a lot to cover. This is a behemoth of an episode, just like the Pokemon we're covering. So without any further ado, how good was Tyranitar actually? Tyranitar was introduced with the rest of the dark types in Gen 2 to balance out the psychic types that dominated Gen 1. That dark typing is one of the things that for a while is part of why we called it a pseudo-legendary, giving it a 4x weakness, in this case to fighting. And that's not really part of the equation anymore since there are pseudos with no 4x weakness. But the reason that 4x weaknesses do exist is because the pseudo-legendaries have a crazy base stat total of 600. So yeah, they're about legendary. Tyranitar's stats are incredible all around except for its speed, which is less than half of its whopping 134 attack stat. But despite the indication that T-Tar would be a sweeping machine, it was actually more of a Swiss Army knife type Pokemon in Gen 2, mostly because it had nothing to augment that lackluster speed. There are plenty of things that Tyranitar could do: phase with Roar, set up Curse, attempt to sweep Mix, and of course take advantage of its dark typing and absurd power for pursuits. That's the one role that it could star in better than any other Pokemon, as it boasted around the power of Houndoom and the sturdiness of Umbreon. Not quite up to those individually, but overall it was a great middle ground between the two other pursuit users at the time. Other than that, T-Tar was serviceable in all its other sets, but as we've come to know, the power of the uncertain can be pretty intimidating. Who would have thought that a hulking mountain-shaped Pokemon's biggest asset would be how enigmatic it can be? Regardless, with a bevy of moves at its disposal like Rock Slide, Fire Blast, and even the Pokemon move lottery that is Dynamic Punch to threaten Snorlax, Tyranitar was one of the most customizable Pokemon in Gen 2. Remember, all stats are maxed out at this point because of how Gen 2 DVs work. As for counters, our behemoth had quite a bit of trouble with the resident bulky water types of Gen 2, Vaporeon and Suicune, who pretty much hard countered it. And there were quite a bit of other checks too, including Machamp, Quagsire, Marowak, Raikou, Nidoking, and Rhydon. So yeah, Tyranitar was good in Gen 2, quite good actually, but we're just getting started. Advance gave Tyranitar all the things it needed to be as the all-powerful despot hinted at in its name. Dragon Dance and Substitute give Tyranitar the setup moves it needed to circumvent its mediocre speed. But the fun doesn't stop there. Sandstream would become one of the hallmarks of Tyranitar from this point on, and just wait, it's not even at its strongest point yet. In Gen 3, Sandstream meant leftovers was irrelevant on a ton of Pokemon, while Tyranitar got to keep chomping away at its apple. Taunt meant Tyranitar could shut down anything trying to phase or stall it out, or it could take advantage of its good special attack stat to tailor hidden power to whatever it needed to hit its counter. Tyranitar's Dragon Dance set was, bar none, the scariest sweeping set in the game. Anything that could counter or check it, like bulky waters, Flygon, Claydol, still had to play perfectly and hope that T-Tar wasn't packing some weird option specifically for that Pokemon in its final slot. And that's only one set. Tyranitar's special attack lets it be a great wall breaker, especially since its pursuits hit so hard. It could take on Gengar with Pursuit, melt Skarmory, nail Swampert with Hidden Power Grass, and then in its last slot it can either be Rock Slide or Ice Beam, because even with no physical investment, Tyranitar's Rock Slide hits like a truck. Speaking of large vehicles, Tyranitar's Choice Band set hit more like a Boeing 747. Choice Banded Focus Punch can do 70% to Swampert, Tyranitar's main counter on the Switch. And Rock Slide 2-hit KOs Milotic. You had to predict this Tyranitar correctly or you would just get run over. Oh yeah, and it had a Sub Punch set too. Of course it did. Really, Tyranitar had few answers. Like we said, Swampert was the best bet, but it still had to be wary of Hidden Power Grass and the Punch, which went through faces like nothing else. Each would-be check has an answer. Suicune and Milotic had no leftovers recovery, Flygon, Ice Beam, Celebi, Hidden Power Bug. Of course, it couldn't do all those things at once, but it always could be doing one of those things and you wouldn't know until you scouted it. Tyranitar was the strongest Pokemon in Gen 3 overuse, period. Just goes to show, kids, eat your dirt. Gen 4 saw Tyranitar doubling down on its claim as one of the most versatile Pokemon in the game. First of all, it got an absolutely massive buff. Sandstorm now raised the special defense of all rock types by 50%, meaning our bulky friend had at least 354 special defense on switch in, even if that's uninvested, and assuming perfect IVs. What's more, it got another way to boost speed with the introduction of Choice Scarf. With its attack already so high, Scarftar was the way to go for a while, able to outspeed and KO Starmie, Azelf, and Gengar with Pursuit. Scarf T-Tar was actually also an important part of the metagame because of the introduction of the new Pokemon Rotom. Rotom was a huge nuisance to any offensive or stall team due to its ability to cripple other Pokemon by tricking specs onto them, burn them with Will-O-Wisp, or stall them out itself with Pain Split. But at the time, all Rotom forms were part Ghost. And also, the new Rotom forms are not available in Pokemon Battle Revolution, so I'll probably have to show the main series games for once on here. Recently, some other T-Tar sets have come to the fore. Banditar's power was even greater in Gen 4 due to Stone Edge, and two sets with Pashul, the water reducing berry, and the Lumberry have developed to more reliably trap Starmie and Rotom. And then in addition to all those sets, it has Dragon Dance, Mix Attacker, Sub Punch, Luretar, Curse. God, it just goes on and on. Gen 4 meant there were a few more counters and checks to Tyranitar. Bullet Punch and Mach Punch let Breloom, Machamp, and Sizzler all do pretty well, but the two fire-weak Pokemon had to be careful of Fire Blast. Swampert still did well, as did Hippowdon, and Skarmory and Lucario could pose threats, but T-Tar could handle all of them, as well as one of the most common Pokemon in Gen 4, Heatran. Tyranitar's versatility meant it was just an ideal fit on almost any team, achieving #1 most used in recent Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum meta. God, you think we've been through a lot already? We still have 2 gens to go, and VGC. 2009 VGC we are mercifully spared from talking about, with no flat level. Tyranitar's level 55 evolution from Pupitar prevented it from being used. In VGC 2010 though, Tyranitar made quite a few appearances, even in multiple world's top 8 teams. Keep in mind that this was the meta with Ubers, and that's pretty impressive. Tyranitar's own Sandstream let it come in to stop Kyogre, Groudon, and Abomasnow, and its bulk let it take such heavy hits like a Surf from Palkia. It mainly resorted to Chople Berry because there were so many things running with priority fighting moves, and then its access to a hugely powerful Rock Slide made it quite valuable. Also, it could trip up Dialga, quite literally, with Low Kick. It wasn't as common as it would be later, but it was still pretty good. We all know Gen 5 is defined by Weather Wars, and that means it was also partially defined by Tyranitar. That alone kept it in high use, because yeah, if you're running Sand, you're probably running T-Tar, or Hippowdon, but mostly T-Tar. There were actually quite a few things that gave T-Tar trouble this generation. The other most dominant weather, rain, meant there were a whole lot of water types running around, and that's the sort of stuff Tyranitar hates switching on. Gen 5 was also a veritable playground for fighting types, Tyranitar's main weakness. Conkeldurr, Terrakion, and Keldeo all did super well versus T-Tar, as did the old threats like Breloom and Lucario. Also, other Pokemon got new fighting tools to play with. Alakazam's Focus Blast was actually so threatening that a new set for T-Tar developed with special defense investment and Chople Berry to live through Focus Blast and kill Alakazam. Tyranitar also had to deal with a lot of new Pokemon running superpower, as Gen 5 gave it a lot of eager new candidates via Move Tutor. Of course, T-Tar got it too, meaning some of those aforementioned threats, Lucario and Terrakion, had to be pretty afraid. Honestly, Tyranitar frequently ended up playing a more bulky supportive role, setting up rocks and trapping unsuspecting Pokemon. Despite its new checks, including Therian forms once Black and White 2 came out, T-Tar's status as the most prominent sand setter meant it was still safely in the upper echelons of overuse. And alright, Gen 5 VGC. VGC 2011 was Black and White decks only, so no T-Tar. Obviously, Rock Slide and Sandstream are still T-Tar's biggest boons. Tyranitar's low speed actually helped it out quite a bit sometimes, because it meant it could take advantage of Trick Room. And since the slower Pokemon's weather comes out first, it could also win Weather Wars. Its moveset was about the same: Rock Slide, Low Kick for Steals, Crunch for Psychics and Ghosts, and Protect, cause it's VGC, dude. Chople Berry was once again the standard to deal with fighting types, and you saw T-Tar paired frequently with Pokemon who could handle fighting types, such as Cresselia, who also happened to be a Trick Room setter. It still hated Mach Punch even under Trick Room, of course, and there were some Tyranitar sets that ran the weatherless Unnerve option. With so many berries in VGC, eliminating them entirely was really good. Those T-Tars usually actually went special to avoid getting neutered by Intimidate users like Hitmontop. Tyranitar was actually massively popular in VGC. It was used in, holy hell, 5 of the top 8 teams for Worlds 2012. This Pokemon is just really good. And finally, Gen 6. Gen 6 had two big changes for Tyranitar. The introduction of a Mega form that looked like it underwent some radioactive mutation, and some fairy types to temper it. Mega T-Tar kicked regular T-Tar's power up to 11, with 164 base attack and an additional 60 points in its defense. And from this, it was the bulkiest Dragon Dance sweeper there was. But actually though, Mega T-Tar was pretty outclassed as a sweeper. While it has a good typing offensive-wise, defensive-wise, it has a whole bevy of weaknesses. And it might be the bulkiest Dragon Dance user, but it is also the slowest. Even at +1 speed, it couldn't outspeed base 135s, most notably Mega Manectric and Mega Lopunny. Since we've been saying it all this time, the name of the game for Tyranitar is Versatility. Thus, the regular beast was actually far more used. Yeah, sand isn't permanent anymore, but not having a Megastone means you can trade in for a more mundane and useful rock, Smooth Rock, which let Tyranitar be a reliable support for Excadrill and Mega Garchomp, who both had abilities that benefited from the sand. Even as a support, Tyranitar's sheer strength let it pick up KOs on Zapdos, Mandibuzz, Kyurem Black, and Talonflame, all very common threats. That last one is especially important considering Talonflame's prevalence in overuse. Past that though, all of Tyranitar's old strengths and weaknesses are there, and as always, the strengths outweigh the weaknesses. Yeah, Fairy and Steel types gave it trouble, but it can hit both of them real hard with Choice Band, or even just on its own. Fast fighting types will give it trouble, but can you find a better pursuit Pokemon to trap the laddies? Listen, Tyranitar can just always do everything, it just can't do everything at once. It's just a very, very, very good Pokemon. Alright, last stretch everyone, it's VGC time. Tyranitar is used quite a bit because of Sandstream and Rock Slide, as usual. Rock Slide buries Talonflame and Charizard Y, who were both pretty prominent during this time. There was actually a special variant more common than the physical in 2014 because of how many Intimidators there were, but that special attacking set still did work. The physical set also got phased out a bit because it lost its low kick from Gen 5, which meant Fire Blast was a much better option during this time against Steel types. Just like in singles, Tyranitar fared better normally than as a Mega, mostly because not using Mega Kang, Mawile, and Salamence seems silly when regular T-Tar does its job already. And don't get me wrong, Mega T-Tar was still incredibly scary if it got a D-Dance up. But with so many weaknesses, it was kind of more difficult than just using regular T-Tar. But if you're like Wolf Glick and can pull it off, Mega T-Tar can actually be pretty damn good. And 2015 saw T-Tar moving back to the physical side with the re-release of Low Kick and Ice Punch via tutors. It could even take advantage of its low speed to use Assurance for more damage than Crunch. It hated fighting and fairies, but its ability to hit so many things for so much really just can't be denied. Well, except in VGC 2016, where Primal Weather doesn't get cancelled out by regular weather. God, those Pokemon are broken. And alright, we're at the end. How good was, you know what, let's just save time. It was and is amazing. You all know that. Both in singles and doubles, Tyranitar kicks ass, and it seems resilient to the changing meta because it really can morph into any situation. And having one of the best abilities and stat totals in the game doesn't hurt. Truly a ridiculously good Pokemon. Now maybe in the future I'll see how it handles the Tapus in Gen 7. Thanks for watching everyone, and holy crap that was long. Thanks patrons. No, but really, thank you so much patrons, and thanks to everyone who's watching it. All of your support is valued here. You have no idea. Alright, I'm out of here because this video is really long already. See you guys next time.